I think it's one of the most dreaded procedures in dentistry. Hearing the news that you need a root canal is never fun. It is really a straightforward procedure nowadays, and there's a lot of new materials out there to make it easier, but still, a root canal does sound scary. And it does suck that someone's gonna be working in your mouth the whole time. Unfortunately, we can't change that. But today, I'm gonna give you 7 signs that you need a root canal. Number 1, and a really obvious sign, is if you have sharp pain waking you up in the middle of the night, especially if you can isolate it to one tooth. Look, some tooth sensitivity is normal, but if you have sharp pain waking you up at night, then this is a sign that you need a root canal. Basically, something is going on with one of your teeth, and it's past the point of repair without getting a root canal. Number 2 is if you have tooth sensitivity and it lingers. One of the tests we do in our office if you need a root canal or not is called a cold test. Now, this sounds like torture, but sometimes you have to recreate those symptoms because you don't want to unnecessarily do a root canal. A cold test is basically when we put something cold against your teeth and we see how you respond. If you have some pain and it goes away pretty quickly, then this usually means we can save that tooth without getting a root canal. But when we put that cold against your tooth and that pain lingers for a while, like over a minute, then it probably needs a root canal. We can still save the tooth, but we have to kill the nerve as well. When your symptoms linger for a while like this, it basically means that whatever inflammation is going on with that tooth is irreversible and it has to get a root canal. Number 3 is if you have an infection in your tooth. Sometimes you'll see that part of your gums are swollen in a certain area, and sometimes that means that you have an infection. Now, this doesn't always mean this. Sometimes it can mean something else. This is why you gotta go to your dentist to get it diagnosed properly. And sometimes you won't see any swelling, and you'll only see this infection when you come to the dentist and we take our x-rays. Now, just because you have an infection, it doesn't mean that that tooth's gonna be bothering you either. The good news in this case is the tooth isn't hurting you, but the bad news is you still need a root canal, because if you don't, that infection is gonna keep growing and it can damage other areas. For example, if it's a top tooth, it can spread to your sinus. Now, obviously, the other option is to get your tooth pulled out, but if you wanna save the tooth, it has to get a root canal. Number 4 is a tooth is cracked or broken. If you have a really large old filling and it's starting to crack and it was never fixed, sometimes that tooth can break. Or other times, someone will open a bottle with their tooth and that tooth will break into the nerve of your tooth. Either way, when the crack goes into your nerve, now you're looking at a root canal. But honestly, this is not the worst case scenario, because when a tooth breaks, it's really unpredictable. And sometimes it can involve the roots of your tooth as well. When too much of the tooth structure breaks, then your only option is to pull the tooth. Number 5 is if you have a large cavity that goes into the nerve of your tooth. Now, usually this can be really painful, but most of the time when I see this happen, it's because a person wasn't going to the dentist for a long period of time, and they had a cavity forming that was never addressed, and it just kept getting worse until the pain was so much that they had to come in. Now, in these situations, a root canal would definitely be preventable if you get that cavity fixed earlier on. But if you don't and that cavity goes into the nerve of your tooth, now you have bacteria and a possible infection forming inside the nerve of your tooth, and the only way to fix this is with a root canal. Now, sometimes this won't even hurt you. In fact, you won't feel anything with that tooth. Now, in this case, your tooth is probably dead. And this leads us to the 6th reason you would need a root canal, which is your tooth is dead. Now, just like we discussed, if you have bacteria that get into your nerve and the pain is there for a little bit, but the pain goes away, now you have a dead tooth that you won't feel any pain anymore. Now, you still need a root canal because there's an infection in the tooth. And like we said before, you don't want this to get worse and spread and damage other areas. Number 7, another reason you need a root canal is if your tooth is discolored. Now, a little bit of staining here and there is not a big deal. But if one of your teeth gets a lot darker or changes in color compared to your other teeth, this is a bad sign. This could mean that the pulp or the nerve and the blood supply that feed that tooth has gotten damaged and it's now dead or dying. And as this occurs, it can change the color of the tooth. Luckily, usually when you get a root canal, you need a crown to cover the tooth, so this discoloration will go away. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video, and if you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below, and I'll see you in the next video.